Okay, we're ready to go here.
I got more treats.
You good? Okay. Okay, this is the licensing committee meeting for March 9th. Declaration of conflict or pecuniary interest, I see none. Minutes of the previous meeting, that's in confidential. If you have any questions, we'll have to go in confidential. But I'd like a mover and seconder to receive it. Mover, Member Bonham, seconder, Member Caslin. Any questions on this item? And don't ask the question, but do you have any? If there's none, then we are good to go. Okay. All those in favor of receiving it? Carried. Unfinished business, licensing unit number 2, the financial status report. Do you want to touch on this, or is it self-explanatory?
Mr. Chair, I think it's self-explanatory, but we're here to answer any questions that you and the board may have.
Any questions from the board members? Member Marshall.
I understood this was the meeting we were going to get the financial status from Uber.
That's coming up in July. But the revisions in that are in July. In March, we were getting some financial status on it, weren't we?
Well,
Yeah. What's our schedule with the TNC?
well, my understanding was we were supposed to put forth the report, which, okay, here we go. Report on licensing unit revenue compared to labor resources analysis that Vice Chair Ganzel requested. So that's basically what we've put forward, which also touches on Uber's contribution towards versus their costs. So we can definitely discuss some of the issues
So
there.
that's item number 3?
Yes.
We'll discuss that one. So we'll expand on that when we hit item number 3, Bob. Thank you. Okay, any other questions on item number 2, the financial status report? I have one. I believe we have a surplus, I'm going back from memory, reading this, of $20,000 or whatever on our financial status report for the licensing unit. Is that correct? Let me read it again. No, I'm on the wrong report. Here's my questions for this one. On the chart at the back, you have personnel at NADMIN. How many people are in personnel? And are you the administrator or administrative?
Mr. Chair, so this report was actually done by, I believe it was Laura Rulo.
Okay.
And for us, we have, total, we have 5 personnel in the unit, including a clerk, a special constable, 2 detective constables, and a detective sergeant. And so I don't know where, to be
So the
quite,
breakdown is 516 for personnel and 90,000 for administrative. Administrative is who?
I would assume that is the clerk, but again, I'm sorry, I didn't write this report, so
Just to add, perhaps, I think the numbers on the back are probably from your program budget, so the administrative would be your day-to-day operating costs for running your office.
Okay. So it doesn't include personnel and the administrative. So all the employees you have is $516,000.
I'm gonna, sorry, Mr. Chair, honestly, like I said, I only saw this when it
That
was
seems
sent.
low for 5 people based on wages of
It does seem
police.
low, so
Okay,
I'd have
next
to,
meeting, can you break that down for us, please?
sure.
And that, I won't hold you to it now.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk to finance about that and find out what those 2 numbers refer to.
Like how many police, how many civilian, and approximate costs, if we can. Thank you. Any other questions on this item? All those in favor? Carried. Item number 3, which is the licensing unit revenue and labor resources analysis. Mover and seconder for this one, please. Member Bonham, Member Ganzel. Comments or questions on this item? Member Ganzel.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the licensing folks for providing this. I think it came out in the last 2 days or so, so I haven't had a total chance to delve into it, but I knew I'd have a few questions for everybody. I'm looking at the revenue piece, and the numbers that you're reporting there are obviously till December 31st of 2016. And what my concern has always been, obviously for the unit to run at a cost recovery basis. I'm concerned that, and hopefully the report that comes in July, the TNC revenue to us is 3% of this pie. And I don't have a similar pie chart for 2015, but my question is, has there been a, quote, let's say a 3% reduction in our taxi licensing, and have we made that 3% back up in the TNC? Like, has it netted out at zero, or what's our sort of differential between those?
Vice Chair, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to actually refer to Detective Constable Lindsay, who oversees the taxi industry, to answer that. I don't know if there can be a full answer to that, though, at this point.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the fact that the detective sergeant threw me under the bus. That would be very difficult to ascertain at this point because it is still preliminary. Initially, when we found out that the TNC was coming on board and they set up shop here, we had heard rumors that there were going to be a lot of taxi drivers that weren't renewing. The information that you received wouldn't reflect any of that, and we would actually have to do a significant investment of time to find that out. We have heard, bear this in mind, this is predominantly through rumors, that there have been a number of individuals, taxi drivers, that have not renewed for that very reason, have actually gone over to Uber. But I mean, that is certainly a report that we could prepare if you are so interested.
I know, I don't, it's you know, it's a sort of thing of trying to grind something down, and I don't think it's worth it, but I am looking forward to what we see in July, because trying to maintain an even slate here to see that the licensing unit is operating in a cost recover basis is key. In looking at the revenues, again, adult entertainment, towing, and everything else, you know, looks to be what I would have expected, you know, based on our numbers. But then looking over to the labor component on this, which obviously affects, you know, staffing of the unit and everything else. And I know from discussions we've had at other board meetings, TNC is like 20% of our time here. If I was to break that time out to being what I would consider to be inside work versus on-the-street investigation work, is the TNC more of an administrative time factor to generate 20% of the overall hours available based on the number of officers and staff that you have in your unit? Is most of that inside, or is there some percentage of actually making sure that they're compliant on the physical road? Like, are they putting their decals on the car, and et cetera, et cetera?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That's a great question. It's actually both. We have had to we've had to do some external projects, like to check compliance and enforcement out on the road. There's a lot of office administration as well that is dealing with the entire Uber issue. I can't break it down. I would say there's more administrative right now. However, we're pushing forward with more enforcement to check on the compliance, because we have had some issues in that area.
And I can also see that as Uber has, you know, I mean, I have no idea on their numbers whether they've sort of reached their maximum saturation, but now it becomes more of an enforcement issue on the road as to whether they are compliant with the bylaws that we have established in the region. But then the same question along the same lines in the adult entertainment area. And I know you have reported back to us over a number of years of, quote, projects out in the field. And I'm assuming that continues to this day, even though, I mean, a lot of it is registration, coming to the counter here and registering for licensing and everything else. But that hasn't taken away from, in other words, what I'm trying to get at is this: the project work continues in all areas within the licensing unit, being towing enforcement, taxis, adult entertainment. I mean, secondhand dealers, I guess, are sort of falling away to the, unfortunately, the online Kijikis of the world of getting rid of stuff versus secondhand stores. But you're still investigating and checking their ledgers and that on a rotating basis?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are. We continue to do all of the enforcement that we previously did. The only challenge was at the end of the year, because of Uber, some of our resources were pulled away a little bit, but we've already started right back this year with the same, in my opinion, the same level of projects, external projects and enforcement in other areas as needed.
Okay, thank you. Those were my questions. Again, a very good report. Look forward to what you have in July.
Member Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the Detective Sergeant. I know this is just like one snapshot, and the whole, Uber thing just started then, so it's probably skewered this. But I'm sort of concerned, since this is a public report of the adult entertainment industry saying, oh yeah, you're overcharging us. And yet, what I would be hoping will be happening is that this type of report could be done on an annual basis so we can see any particular trends in that. I don't know how difficult it is to do, but perhaps once a year. This one year, I think, is an anomaly. 2016, 2017 might even out a little bit better, more appropriately. But is the intent that this may become sort of an annual thing with a history? Because I just foresee that this being really useful in deciding license rates and whatever as far as the cost recovery. So I'm just wondering if there would be an intent to do that, or is this a one-off?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Well, initially the request was basically, as you called it, a one-off. But moving forward, can we look at doing it on an annual basis? As I tried to cover in the report, I do believe that especially with respect to both the adult entertainment and the tow industries, they were anomalies this year. In past years, from my recollection, and I do have all the hearing briefs to back it up, there were a lot more hearings for adult entertainment issues, like for revocation, suspensions of licenses, things like that. And like I said, normally we would have actually done even more out in the field enforcement. However, the Uber anomaly of last year did draw some of our resources from that. However, but my intent and goal of moving forward is to devote as much time as the revenues suggest towards each of the industries again.
Woody has a comment first, Bob, if that's okay. Okay, Bob, you're up. Thanks.
Thank you. You understand that when we've asked for the cost, it was because we wanted to make sure that we recover. And there was some discrepancy the last time over the costs that were allocated. Have you made some efforts to make sure that your costs are now accurate?
Sir, Member Marshall, through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure I understand the question. When you say the cost, do you mean the cost of the specific license categories?
No.
Okay.
The overall costs for your department. I mean, gasoline that's used by the cars, by the vehicles, depreciation on the vehicles. An allocation of, I'm squeaky today, an allocation of space, the cost per square foot, that sort of thing that can truly measure what the costs of your department are.
Yes, and I think that's where we're going to have to work with the finance department with respect to indirect allocations that we don't have any control over. However, I can tell you that budget-wise, our unit was under budget with respect to our annual budget. The only challenge was, in one case, as I put in the report, the legal fees for Uber. And again, that was an anomaly, hopefully, that cost a lot more than we had allocated for our unit. Other than that, our costs were below what our budget provided for, to my knowledge.
Yeah, there has been considerable pressure on your department, as you know, in previous years. And we just would like to make certain that we're recovering all your costs. So it's important that we don't, let them slip.
I agree 100%, and I think Mr. McCaig may also back me up on this. We're probably going to be looking forward to recommendations with respect to the Uber revenues that will recommend changes in that respect. As far as this report indicates, And based on our experience, everybody, all the other license categories are in line with maintaining a revenue neutral licensing unit. The only challenge has been the new TNC category.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, Woody, I'm sorry, go ahead.
3 points. First is, when I read this, I thought the same thing as what Vaughn thought. I forgot it was going to be a public report, though. I was thinking, oh, I hope they don't find out. The adult entertainment industry has said for 20 years now that they pay too much compared to, relative to other licensed. They have said that for years. Now, I don't agree with and this shows that last year when there was an anomaly with the TNCs because of the increased cost. This showed that last year they did pay more. I think if you look back, most years we've looked at it and they have not. But this is going to be something where it may add some fuel to them. But what their argument always is, I think, where their argument is flawed is that they say that the adult entertainment should only be, you should look at that in a silo, and I don't think that's what the law is. And I can't remember the woman's name who we've dealt with, Bob, but we've told her that, and I believe they accept that. So anyway, on a one-year snapshot, this shows that there's some anomalies, but in order to figure out whether or not there should be any adjustment, you'd have to look over a period of several years. That's number one. Number two, I think what Craig has just said concerning the fees for Uber, those are going to have to be reviewed, and I think that was always the plan, to review them in July. And I think the other thing that's going to have to be reviewed in July is the actual specific provisions, the TNC provisions, because I've been in contact with Craig and his group over the last while, and there's some things that I think we're going to have to recommend changing, and I think the Uber people know what they are. So those are my only comments on it.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of receiving this? Done. That's it, isn't it, Deb?
Nothing else on the agenda?
No new business for licensing? Okay, this meeting's adjourned. Next is
Just a board discussion.
board discussion, so, thank you.